Hi, local main character Zep here. I'm just looking at this picture. Do you guys know what this is?
Mini4WD drive, or Mini Yonku for the weeb on the hurry, is a toy giant that's been around for 40 plus years. Starting out as battery-powered worm gear cars, Tamiya quickly shifted the brand's focus to racing, to great success given the fact that it could have gone through 2 divorces and 5 kids by its age. This kind of success has, of course, been accompanied and assisted by anime and manga success as far back as the 80s, with Yonkuro, arguably one of the first true hobbyani after Plamo Kyoshiro, but the one everyone remembers fondly and had mass-market international success was the Vrooming Brothers' Let's and Go, and yes, that is how I'm translating Bokuso Kyodai. Much can be said about the iconic series, which is why I'm going to say nothing. We don't have the time for that kind of history lesson. This won't be 4 hours. There's even a manga running in the traditional home of Mini4WD drive, Koro Comics, or at least its online version. Koro, the magazine that pioneered the toy and game advertisement, and the penis anime and shit and fart comics. What does penis anime mean? I don't know. I think it's pretty clear.
Today we are not talking about the revolutionary show that shaped the hobbyani genre as a whole, and whose ripples are still felt today in shows like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Beyblade, the highest-grossing media franchise of all time, and every show like them. Today we're talking about the toy it sold.
These cars are crazy. They're model kits that you build and maintain for races in plastic tracks, like giant slot cars, but you don't control them. Don't write it off as a skillless task of buying the fastest motor and slapping it onto the best wheels, though. Each course configuration has its own unique challenges, and not considering them and tuning your vehicle incorrectly is the difference between winning and flying off the track. You have to be as fast as you can while being in exact control of your vehicle, and then maintain your machine at that performance level. It's intense! And that's why it's been a popular hobby in Japan, China, Indonesia, and a bunch of other places. Just look at the amount of fan films that have been made about it. I'm not really surprised about the Indonesian success because it's a magical place where anything can happen. Crush Gear still has a dedicated competitive fan base there, still active to this day.
Love you guys!
But the United States success has been fairly limited. Like, yeah, there are select US hobby stores that have tracks and events, but they're few and far between. So let's find out what may be the barrier to entry by building some of these guys. Opening it up, it's a standard model kit to some degree, except some parts are already removed from their runners at the factory, and the bags are stapled shut. Huh, unique. There are, of course, instructions, and they're laid out like this, huh? This sure takes up a lot more space than the horizontally read Gunpla instructions, or booklets, but fine, I'll play ball. I am, if nothing else, known for playing with balls. There's a lot of hardware included, and most of it is microscopic. Since this is a starter kit, it comes with tools for assembly, like a wrench, a Phillips head screwdriver, and my favorite, rubber tube, for the ball caps. Don't over-tighten, you might deform the ball.
Just like the real thing!
Since the parts are so small, they're liable to go missing, so put them in a tray just to keep them together. Luckily, most of the small hardware comes with extra copies, like Lego sets with their small parts. But not everything has extras.
Yeah, just like one of my friends from high school, this kid is missing a ball. It rolled between a gap between the trim of my wall and the floorboards, and all rescue attempts ended in terrible failure. So I looked up how to get blue balls. It did not help. All of the listings would not arrive in a timely manner. So I just used an extra nut from the kit in order to tighten that part of the car, so I hope it doesn't affect my performance too much for these very casual purposes.
The process is fun, although somewhat challenging at times compared to, say, like a high-grade Gunpla. In the first episode of the Let's It Go anime, a kid hammers on new wheels to his car with a mallet. I thought that was kind of weird. It's not. These are a challenge to get on without a setup like that. and I imagine it might be tough for a child. I guess it's better than the alternative of loose wheels, but everything else either screws or clicks into place though, including the power terminal and motor. The kit also comes with an adorable tube of grease for lubing up the moving bits. I find the method of opening it fascinating. You break off the seal and then flip it upside down to cap off the tube. Pretty sure this tube of grease is doing all of the heavy lifting for the birthright in Japan because I want to raise it as my child. Constructing the brake pads was interesting because they offer two options, high or low friction foam. I chose low because that's what's on the box, I think. You have to cut them to size and use the adhesive backing to stick them to the brake unit. Luckily, everything that needs to be a certain size has the 1-to-1 scale diagram in the manual, like Lego Technic axles. This is really helpful for the hardware especially. The initial build can be a bit tricky for a newcomer, but in the end, it's not too off-putting. And the end results, a functional vehicle, are rewarding. Of course, you need to continuously tune, clean, and replace parts, but that's the caveat of the hobby. The build is never done.
So now that we have the cars, we need a track because, they really need it. Luckily, I ordered a home oval track from Japan. It comes with 2 cars to start racing and overall costs about $90 when converted from yen. The track is huge, being about a fully grown man by a toddler in size. Now let's get ready to ship it and Jesus H. Christ! Wiki, that's a price tag. So, after a few email chains, I managed to get that refunded, so I thought it maybe could be found domestically. I mean, after all, the normal track is around $60 to $70 converted from yen, but since it's an import, in particularly low numbers, yikes! I'm not buying it. I can't fit that into my already toy-laden budget with, you know, the other stuff. So, I guess for the first time in human history, someone is a proud owner of a Scandigo track. Luckily, the Scandigo cars are modeled after the Mini 4-wheel drive cars as a kind of entry-grade version of the product, so the tracks are almost compatible. I am of one of the at max 1 dozen Americans who this information is pertinent to. Could I foresee this happening in Christmas 2013 when I got the Scandigo track? No, not at all, but of course I was kind of going through puberty and Metal Fight Beyblade Zero G at the same time, so I was kind of mentally preoccupied.
To race these cars, you simply drop them onto the track at the same time. Some setups have this ramp that you can put them on to launch them simultaneously, but we're not the bourgeoisie, so mid it is. Granted, this track is a bit tight, so we have to push them into the slots, but that's just the Scandigo compromise. It's what we deserve. And they're fast. Like, so fast. It's really fun to watch them go around, or go through different track formations. Being able to see this in real life is an actual spectacle, and that spectacle inherently plants the idea in your head, I could make it go faster though. After seeing this, I wanted to take these guys apart, tune the motor on the slower one, and add up more tune-up parts to make it handle these things like jumps and turns or the inclines better. The play pattern becomes so obvious and so alluring.
With all that in mind, why isn't this more popular in the US? I don't know. Why isn't it? Yeah, the price point and space this takes up makes it a bit of a high barrier to entry product. I think part of the reason Bandai made Crush Gear was to offer a Mini 4-wheel drive experience at a much smaller scale, only needing an arena, as compared to, this. Yeah, that's why play is much more confined to hobby stores, which are more common in highly population-dense areas. And just like card games, official play is the lifeblood of the game. The difference between this and a card game is that a card shop only needs the product, the player base, and a play space for it. And those tables in the play space can be used for literally any card or board game. They justify their own floor space. These giant tracks can only be used for Mini 4-wheel drive, so it's tough to justify that investment for any given store, seeing as it can only be used for one game. It's not flexible. It's not like there's absolutely no stores in the US that do Mini 4-wheel drive, but without a guaranteed player base, that investment, both initial and continued, is tough on customers and the store. A store would have to somewhat focus themselves on Mini 4-wheel drive as opposed to other products, and without other hobby stores nearby that specialize in other things or more general, official play is confined to highly population-dense areas that can afford to specialize in such a niche hobby. Regardless, I hope that the distribution of tracks becomes easier and cheaper. As a niche hobby, the tracks are expensive as there's not that big of a buying base, and there's not that big of a buying base because the tracks are expensive and hard to get, so on and so forth in a dangerous, vicious cycle. If you want just a taste of Mini 4-wheel drive without the tracks or anything, you can try out their mechanical line, which are Mini 4-wheel drive cars without the motors, and instead have different play features to mimic what happens on the different anime for the series. They're pretty cheap, so it's a great pickup if you don't want to deal with any of the finicky bits or the constant maintenance or trying to set up a giant track in your already small home. You may need to paint them if you want them to look fully up to snuff, but Tamiya spray paint cans are common enough, and if you just want a cool anime car and don't care about making it look as good as possible, they're a nice pickup. And that's Mini 4-wheel drive. I'll probably cover all of the anime series someday, but for now, I need to make some calls. Hello? The bank? I'd like to take a loan out for some, mistakes?